Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this section of the All Text Python course where we're discussing data types and objects. We've discussed so far numbers and how numbers can be divided into integers and decimal point numbers, and we've discussed strings. So I gave you a bunch of ways you can manipulate strings, and in a similar way we're going to discuss the next data type, which is called lists, or they're also called arrays sometimes, but in Python they're referred to as lists. So as the name suggests, a list is a collection of data, and basically how you form a list. So I'm going to say I want a list 1 is equal to, and the way you construct a list is not surrounding it by quote marks, you surround it by square brackets. Alright, so when you type in a square bracket, now you have made a list, and this list you can either leave it empty. So now a list print list is an empty list. So but I can put data in there, so I can have list 1 is equal to, I can put numbers in here, 4 5 2 1 6. Doesn't have to be in order, and even if I print out my list again, then it will print it out in the order that I put the data in. So it doesn't have to be in order. But another thing I want to tell you, that lists don't need to store the same type of data either. So I can store numbers. This one had just numbers. I can store just strings, so string, name, dog. So these are a few strings that I can store, and I can print list 1 now, and it'll show me this list containing these strings in the order that I inputted them. But what's also important is that list does not, in Python, lists do not need to store the same type of data. So I could have list 1 store a number and a string form of that number, and a string form of in the word form. I could have 45.5, so that's a floating point number, and this is a valid list. It does not give me an error. So if I print it out, it's the same. So yeah, that's how you create a list. There's also another way to create a list. So I could have list 1 equals list and then parentheses. This creates an empty list. Print list 1. There I have created an empty list. So yeah, that's another way to create a list, but the square bracket notation is more common and also more useful, as we'll see later on. With lists, what you can do a lot of the same stuff that you could do with strings. So there's the slicing and indexing that we discussed. So if I make a list, let's call this list of countries is equal to a list. It'll have Pakistan because I'm from Pakistan. It'll have USA. It'll have Japan. It'll have China. It'll have Russia, and that's a list of 5 countries. Alright, so I can do len list, length of this list, len list of countries 5, right? And I can also do the same type of stuff. So the first element of this list, that's this Pakistan string, this is at index 0. So if I want to access that, I'll do index 0. Oh, I keep forgetting to give it the right name. List of countries 0. This returns Pakistan. List of countries 1. So now I'm looking at index 1, which is the second element. This will give me USA. List of countries -1. This will give me the last element, which is Russia. List of countries -2. This will give me the second to last element, which is China. By the way, if you're wondering how I'm getting this autofill option, is by pressing tab in Jupyter Notebook. Alright, so there's our list again so that we can see it. So this was the indexing bit, and it works in exactly the same way. So 0 index refers to the first element, and you can access it with square brackets. Then comes the slicing bit. So let's say I want the first 3 countries. So I'll do list start from the first. So if I want to start from the first, I leave that empty, and I want to end at the third country, which is index 2. But you need to remember that the upper bound of your slice is exclusive. So if I want to include Japan, that means I need to go up to China, which will not be included, and China is index 3. It's the 4th element, index 3. That is a bit confusing, but that's just how almost every programming language is written. So list 3 gives me keep forgetting, list of countries, and I want to start from the start, so I leave this field empty, and I want to go up to the 3rd element, which is at index 2, but it's exclusive, so I want to go up to the next one, and that'll give me Pakistan, USA, Japan. Let's say I want to go from USA up to Russia. I want to include everything but Pakistan, so I'll go from index 1. So the starting point is inclusive and the ending point is exclusive. So USA is the 2nd element at index 1, so I start from index 1 and I want to go all the way to the end, so I leave the end blank. This gives me USA, Japan, and Russia. And let's say I want just the middle 3 countries, so I'll do list of countries. I want the middle 3, so that's starting from USA and ending at China. So I'm starting at index 1, that's inclusive of USA, and I'm ending at, I want to include the country that's at index 3, sorry, so it's the 4th country at index 3, but if I write in index 3, it'll be exclusive, so I have to go up to the next one to include the one that's in index 3. This will return me the middle 3 countries, USA, Japan, China. And again, similarly to lists, there's a 3rd argument. So I could start from the start, end at the end, and go backwards. List of countries. And it returns me the list backwards. The 3rd parameter of this square bracket notation is again the size of the step you want to take. So I start from the start, end at the end, that's why I left those 2 empty, and then I'm taking steps of size 1 in the backwards direction. So I'm going backwards and taking steps of 1. So normally this is left empty, so what it does is it takes steps of 1 in the forward direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I put the minus sign, it'll go backwards, so it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so it starts from it sits at the first index, like at the 0th index, at the first element, and it takes a step back and includes this, then it goes this, then includes this, then this, then this, and that becomes the last element of the list. So yeah, that's how slicing and indexing worked with lists, and it's pretty similar to how it did with strings. In the next video, we're going to look at some important list methods. So yeah, stay tuned.